Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Deal, where we discuss business, entrepreneurship, and commercial real estate. My name is Lacey Labs, and I'm here with my co-host, Laura Martin. In today's episode, we interview Catherine House, SVP of SBN Capital West Partners. Catherine has worked in commercial real estate for over 30 years and specializes in medical real estate. She chairs the National Healthcare Real Estate Council for SBN and has won various Women of Influence awards. Tune into this episode to hear more about Catherine's journey, the commercial real estate experience that she shares, and what advice she would give to younger agents getting started in medical real estate. Catherine House, welcome to Beyond the Deal. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Good morning.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Good morning.
So we'd love to start out with just hearing a little bit about you and your background and kind of how that led into you starting working in commercial real estate.
Sure. Well, I probably should just take a step back for those people who perhaps actually don't know who I am. But I am the head of healthcare and medical real estate for SVN, which is a national company. And I'm sure if you're listening to these podcasts, you're very well aware of Laura and the fact that we are both within the same organization. Mm-hmm. So I am a commercial real estate broker and a commercial real estate advisor. And that's an area I think the industry is moving more to advisory. I'm a CCIM, I'm a chartered surveyor and a fellow of the RICS, and I am a counsellor of real estate, also very involved in CRE network. So that's a little bit about kind of who I am now. In terms of, I think you were asking, tell me about my background, and I think we're going to come into that a little bit more in the podcast. But in terms of how did I sort of really get started in this industry, I would say it probably started as a young child. I was particularly fond of Lego, as well as Monopoly. And you'll have to forgive me, as a child, I did cheat at Monopoly. I was very good at Monopoly. So it just seemed a very natural progression choice to say, oh, there's an industry where you actually get to play with real life Monopoly, if not real life Lego on occasion. Mm-hmm. So I think I was attracted to that. Obviously, you can tell from the accent that I grew up in the UK. So I actually studied commercial real estate at university. I did an undergraduate degree in urban estate management that was focused on investment analysis, real estate law, valuation, a little bit of construction, a little bit of town planning. They threw a few things in. But that was my undergraduate degree that then led me into the industry. So I was working for CBRE in London for many years on the corporate services side of things in London. And I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you jumped in and you started in London, were you doing medical at that point, or was it more general, or did you have a different kind of focus?
Yeah, so to start off, I actually got a fairly good grounding in all sorts of different areas. In order to become a chartered surveyor, you actually have to have a minimum of at least 9 months of work experience in the valuation world. Okay. It doesn't matter what direction you want to go in, brokerage, taxation, reviews of leases. It could, whatever direction you're going in, everyone's required to have that base valuation knowledge. So I actually did some property management. I did some property tax appeals for commercial property. And then I actually ended up in valuation and specializing in institutional portfolio valuation work for many, many years. Actually, I want to say it was probably 7 or 8 years I was focused on doing institutional portfolio valuations. And that was in London. And I think I recall kind of looking around in my late 20s, realizing that I had very much kind of, I think, pigeonholed myself, which is probably a British expression. But I had, because I had so many years under my belt of doing this particular type of very specialized institutional investment analysis valuation work, that it was actually going to be very hard for me to jump and be able to be employed as an investment agent or broker. So that very much led me to making the jump to come to the States. So not to mention the fact, I think on the day that I saw the ad, it was raining. I'm there sitting in my office in London. The rain is pouring. The sky is grey. And I see an advert connected with Grubb & Ellis and Knight Frank, both at the time very respectable companies, or probably even still, and saying, would I like to come and work in California doing commercial real estate brokerage? And I was like, what's the catch?
I think
What's
I
the
would.
catch? I would. I think that appeals. So one step led to another, and it was really a whim on a rainy day rather than anything that was as thought out at the beginning of my career. I knew nobody in the States, nobody in California. Literally turned up with my suitcase full of summer clothing, only to find out that Northern California actually has relatively similar weather to England.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow, fascinating. Okay. So to continue the story, how then did you make that jump into this medical specialty that you've been in now for a while?
So when I came to the States, I as I mentioned, I came over here with Grubb & Ellis, and basically, and I got my feet under the table. I was able to get my social security number, which meant I could then sit for my exams and get my license and find somewhere to live and all the rest of it. So that probably absorbed the first 2 months that I was here. And then I don't know if you guys recall back in, goodness, this would be 2001, Grubb & Ellis went through some jitters. And so of the 30 Brits that they had hired at the time, they decided en masse to get rid of us. So kind of like last in, first out. And so I found myself scrambling. And unfortunately, my license had just come through. I could practice in the industry, which is obviously very useful if you're trying to find a new job. So that was literally over Christmas. So I came to the States just after September 11th in October of 2001. I'd been hired during the dot-com boom. The crash had occurred. Then we had September 11th. Then Catherine arrived. Was probably the final nail in the coffin, right? So, but anyway, and then obviously Grubb & Ellis decided to really have a retrench. And so I found myself looking around, was able to find, actually had a number of offers. The one that I chose was a company called Whitney Cressman that is now called Kidder Matthews. So Kidder Matthews, strong reputation, a lot of great brokers there, thought it'd be a great place to learn how to be an American or a US commercial real estate broker. Because not only had I made the jump from England to the States, I was very much changing roles from being a corporate, a corporate chartered surveyor to being an American real estate agent, where you're very much out there on your own working on commission. I'd been working on a salary with a bonus. Now I'm working purely on 100% commission. So it was a very different world. Yeah. But no, I was able to learn from a number of people in the offices. I did all sorts of things. I did office leasing, retail, industrial, you name it. I was landlord tenant work, office. I think I tried anyone who was willing to let me assist in the office. I basically said, I will take a tiny slice of your commission if you will allow me to work on the deal, do all the work, and use this as a learning experience. And so I think a lot of them were saying, okay, I'm off to play golf. I'll bring in the business, you do the work. And it was a great learning experience. So then I moved from there. After a couple of years, I decided I wanted to specialize being an investment broker, which actually was one of the reasons I'd come to the States, because that was the area I wanted to specialize in. Didn't know at the time that it was going to necessarily be medical, but I went to CBRE and ended up staying there about, I want to say it was about 6 years, maybe almost 7 years. And I was part of their private client group, focusing on smaller assets, those assets from $500,000 through to about $15 million. And what I found was I was developing a lot of relationships with physicians, with the doctors and dentists. Not only were they, many of them kind of high net worth individuals who had the money to go out there and buy assets in that price range, but many of them actually were buying assets themselves to occupy for their businesses. So when I kind of looked at my portfolio and looked at the clients that I was working with, I realized over 50% of them had some sort of medical connection. And that includes doing work for people like Sutter Health, so CPMC, in addition to, I'd say, primarily smaller individual physician groups and individuals. And so it really just evolved over time. And then once I realized that most of my business was coming from that sector, that's when I kind of doubled down and said, right, now I'm going to start referring. If somebody asks me to do multifamily or industrial or whatever it may be, I'm going to say, no, let me refer you to the specialist and the expert. Yeah. And I'm going to focus, I'm going to hang my shingle as being the medical real estate expert, the healthcare expert. So that is... that's kind of how I evolved into being the head of healthcare and medical real estate here at SVN.
How did you make the jump to SVN? When was that?
So that was the end of 2009. Okay. I want to say I actually kind of Christmas time. I think I probably resigned over Christmas, and first day would have been January of 2010, and that was a particularly interesting time in that. I'd actually also developed a number of relationships with British people, understandably, and I'd also developed a number of relationships with people in the banking world, particularly a lot of the smaller Asian banks. And so I ended up being asked to help with some distressed assets. And this was kind of a great opportunity because I joined SVN, and almost immediately I was referring business to other SVN offices saying, can you help me do a broker opinion of value? There's a bank that has an asset. We want to know, they want to understand if they should be holding it, selling it. Yeah. And then some of those evolved into selling, or that office selling an asset. I certainly, whilst obviously I was doing medical, because of the economic times that we found ourselves in 2009, 2010, I was referring a lot of business out across the country. Because of the fact that I had all these relationships with banks that had their headquarters in Northern California. And a lot of that came from the networking that I did when I first came here because I didn't know anyone, I just stumbled into people, Brits in the banking industry. And that really enabled me to get my first couple of assignments. And once I'd got my first few, then everybody knew me as the go-to person if they really wanted to understand what was going on with their property, regardless of whether it was medical or not.
So what kind of drew you into or gave you this passion for the medical side of it? Like how did you choose that direction?
So, as I said, it's organic. I think for whatever sector people are interested in, it's, I think the more you dig into a particular specialty, the more you realize that there's more to learn, there's more to know, from the architectural side, from the construction side, from understanding how the how the actual person using the building is operating their business. How are they dealing with their patients? How are they getting reimbursed? What's impacting their industry that then has a knock-on effect into the bricks and mortar side of things. So you end up, I think, going down the rabbit hole and just get drawn in by the fact that there's always more to learn. So, and then also I think the relationships. The more that I have been involved with one particular assignment, that client will then use me again in the future, and they'll also recommend me to their friends and to their colleagues and to their family members. So I think a lot of it was just organic, in that I came, people kept asking me to help them. So I think it was just, as a child, I didn't grow up thinking, I really want to specialize in medical. It really did just gradually evolve and occur. And then it's just such an interesting area. You get sucked in and you end up learning more and then asking more questions and developing more relationships. And I expect that to continue for some time to come.
And you can do stuff nationally too, which is nice.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, one of the things that we were, I think, chatting with before the call started was, I think what are the goals that I have for the year ahead. And I think a lot of that is connected to SVN and the fact that we have such strong presence in a lot of these secondary and tertiary markets. Not a lot of people know that we have like over 220 offices in almost every state. And we're particularly strong in all these secondary and tertiary markets. And I think my goal for this year and next year is really to go out there and see if we can get more assignments, particularly with some of the institutional players who have assets in locations that perhaps are a little bit off the beaten track, where they have assets, we have offices and expertise, and we potentially can team up with other experts and advisors they may be using, so that it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah. So that leads us really well into our next question. You serve as the National Healthcare Real Estate Council Chair for the SVN network. So it's those 220 offices, all those primary markets, secondary markets, tertiary markets are all kind of within your purview in that role. What does that role entail? How does that kind of play out in the day-to-day? And what challenges do you face there? And what do you like about it? What's your favorite parts?
So I'm going to start with the positive side, and then jump to some of the challenges, and then maybe finish on another positive. But the thing that I like the most is, I think, meeting new people. And I think meeting people where you develop great relationships with them. Laura Martin, who's sitting next to you, we met through SVN, we met because of the SVN network. And, we've had a chance to kind of walk around, get to know each other, go out for meals, share important parts of what's happening with our careers and our lives. I think I was chatting to you just before I became a US citizen, and I think you were almost more excited than I was.
We happened to be in DC for a conference, we walked many of the monuments.
That's right.
That was memorable. Right. Yeah.
But so that was great. The building the relationships with the SVN managing directors and the advisors. That is one of the pleasurable elements of it. The challenges, obviously, I think navigating the kind of the economic uncertainty, what should people be doing? Where should they be doing it? Where should we be focusing our time and our energy? Should it be on bank distressed assets? Should it be doubling down on medical? If medical, where? So I think, helping to give advice to all the SVN offices so that we can all collectively grow. Managing complex transactions. I've been involved in numerous transactions which involve multiple SVN offices. And I think we might come and chat more about one of them later. But I would say, just looking back at last year, I had almost, not quite all, but the majority of my assignments, I was teaming up with other SVN brokers because of their expertise or the location of the property. And juggling those kind of complex transactions where there's all sorts of things going on, and you have to keep all the balls in the air, keep everything juggling correctly, and keep on top of that. The other thing at the moment, adapting to technological advancements. In particular, the impact of AI. How do we use it effectively? I feel like I'm still learning and using some of these technologies. I'm trying to learn how to use social media more effectively. I'm very impressed with you guys doing your podcast. Learning how we use it effectively without it causing issues as well. So I think there's ways to use it effectively, and there are ways where it could actually be dangerous. So I think utilizing those type of tools and teaching others and within the team, like how are we going to work effectively as a team to get the right solution for the client. I think the thing I really like doing, challenge, but it's fun at the same time, is actually creating these complex, or I should say, creating the teams that we need to be competitive, so that when we are pitching, we're effective and we get the assignment because we've got the right group of skills and location in place. And, I had one last year where it was actually a bank trust department had an asset the trust officer and bank were up in Northern California. The building was in Southern California, in Alhambra. We then had the bank go under and was acquired by another bank. So we then acquired a new trust officer mid-escrow or mid-negotiations, almost in escrow, that was based in New York. You've got brokers in different offices, you've got clients in different offices, and we're all kind of racing to put the deal together so that it can all be done on a good timeline. Would be a win-win for everyone concerned. And that was another scenario where, I was able to bring in the buyer from another location. And in fact, we had many SVN offices bring in their own buyers. And we were able to be a win-win for, I think, every single party involved in the transaction. And that takes some skill.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that you in the past did a deal that we were involved in, actually, yes. Right?
That's
you and
correct.
Laura.
Yes. Yeah. Another success story.
Yeah.
And I think, collaboration with SVN colleagues. I mean, if you were to point to one element out of, I think, the SVN core covenants, it's the collaboration is the one that for me really kind of rings true and has been really beneficial for my career, as well as a lot of fun when you're in the midst of doing it. But no, I have to say, for the deal we're talking about, this was one where Welltower, that is a very well-known, huge REIT, they had a building. It was a disused former hospital, and it was located in Mechanicsburg,
our backyard,
in Pennsylvania. Literally, I want to say within 5 miles of your office at the time. And so it was one of those scenarios where we had the perfect team, because in terms of us putting together our thinking cap, we had a scenario where, I was able to bring in the assignment to SVN from Welltower, and we were competing against, I want to say, 7 or 8 other companies, national companies, including the big boys of the world, the ones that, some of the largest brokerages out there. And we were competing side by side with them. We got down to the final 3. And, the client came back to us and said, you guys have actually come in with the lowest suggested value. However, your report was so comprehensive and knowledgeable that we actually feel that we want to move forward with you. However, can you answer a couple of questions about this comparable here appears to contradict your evaluation or your opinion of value. Can you explain why this, why this comparable was not, is not, doesn't mean we shouldn't actually be asking a lot more money. And we were able to go in, and I think particularly Laura, with your knowledge of the local area, we were able to go in and dissect the fact that this comparable should have been measured on a per room basis, not to mention that some of the site was not unusable. And the way that we were analysing this site, this comp actually supported our position. So we were able to go back and say, actually, this is a very helpful comp for us because it actually supports our position on a per door basis. So it was great to be kind of validated by something that they were questioning was actually something that perhaps we hadn't been aware of. But no, we beat out all the competition, and it was our seniors housing team, Laura with the local office and myself collaborated, and it was a great assignment, including the fact that Laura spotted a tax problem. So we actually got involved in doing some property management that popped up in the middle that the client had been unaware of. That
you have a good memory.
hundreds of thousands.
Wow.
You also did over 30 tours. The reason I know that down is because I did double check and look it up. You did over 30 tours of this.
There's a lot of interest. It's great zoning.
Yeah. And so we had offers that were coming in from other SVN offices. But at the end of the day, it was actually one of your relationships, Laura, that came in and was the winning bidder. So again, a great example of all of the different offices collaborating together for a very successful outcome. And that we managed to get it closed I want to say it was December 30th of 2020.
Yeah.
And I think we were all keen to get it done before the end of the year. And we did manage to get it done by the skin of our teeth. I think we had a few hours cushion. Yeah, it was, obviously these things can get a little stressful as you're racing against the clock. But no, I think at the end of the day, everyone was happy. The buyer, the seller, and all of the SVM brokers involved.
Well, we appreciate.
Thank you to you, Laura. We should do a podcast on that story of that assignment.
Break that down. We may be.
That'd be interesting.
We appreciate your bringing us in on that deal. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking to do more of in 2025 and 2026. Let's just make sure that for all these buildings that they have in places like Mechanicsburg, which again, I had to Google it. And then very happy to find that we had a presence there, unsurprisingly, that we could bring to the table.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So I think maybe what you just said almost answers one of our next questions, which is, what are you excited about in the future, and what are your goals with your business in the future?
Sure. Well, I think, as I mentioned, there's actually two different goals that I have for the year. One is with SVN, as I said, to work with more of these institutional owners to see if we can bring, or I can bring, more referrals to all of the SVN offices, particularly with a medical real estate angle. And we also have an excellent seniors housing team as well. Tori Rizzo is the head of that, and the two of us are the co-chairs of the healthcare group here at SVN. So there's that. That's the big one. I am also looking to invest in medical real estate buildings myself. So I do own some assets at the moment, but I'm actually looking to expand my portfolio. And I'm looking in places like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. If Laura in particular, or if anyone watching this, if you have a medical real estate investment that has a good story, then I would be very interested to learn about it. So, and this is collaboration with clients of mine. So I think, yes, would be very interested to sort of focus on that and really strengthen that this year, next year. I think this is a great year to be a buyer, not just of medical, but of a multitude of different asset classes. Medical obviously has been my specialty. I've been working in the industry now for over 30 years, which is rather terrifying. So I'm actually looking to put that knowledge into something tangible where I and my clients will actually be able to buy some interesting assets and really go in, value add, and turn them around and increase the value.
Love it. Those are great goals, especially kind of mixing the experience with the ability to actually leverage that for your own separate part of business of investing. So yeah, that's awesome. So I think we kind of skipped over one other question I'd like to get back to, which is, so you've talked a lot about your role in the SVN network and the Healthcare Council, but I'm really curious you've all these other memberships and involvement that you do. So what are the things of those stand out to you? And do you have any favorites or ones that have been impactful in your career that are outside of just the SVN stuff?
And the conferences you go to. I know.
No, absolutely. No, I have to say, SVN is very much part of that. Next week, Laura, Martin, and I will be at the SVN conference. So very much looking forward to catching up with everybody across the country there. So I very much look at going to these conferences as a great way to meet people across the US and develop and strengthen relationships. But other organizations that I'm currently very actively involved with, the CRE Network organization. They actually set up some product specialty groups themselves. And I am currently the co-chair of the Medical Real Estate Council for CRE Network. And we are made up of 24 individuals from around the US. We actually have one guy The rest are female. But we are made up of multitude of disciplines, multitude of markets. But that is a great learning opportunity. There's so much knowledge that comes from all these different people, from asset management to architects to other brokers. It's a really fabulous group. So that has been one where it's a mixture of getting to know the individuals as well as actually learning from each other. So that has been a great one.
And CRE is commercial real estate women, right?
Do not have a chapter.
Now, historically, I've also been a past president of the San Francisco chapter of CRE, but this role that was back in 2010. But this role is different. This is a national role where we're collaborating across the US. And we did have someone from Canada last year. I think this year we are purely US centric.
Yeah.
But other organizations that I'd recommend to people, CCIM. I'm a CCIM member. I've been on the leadership board as well. But CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Manager, the education that you get there, particularly if you want to analyze transactions and analyze deals, is really second to none. So for those of you maybe looking to learn more about commercial real estate in particular, which is not taught at the state level. I think I mentioned earlier, I got my state license, zero questions on anything to do with commercial, very focused on the residential side. And so I think it does not prepare you for a career in commercial real estate. So I definitely would recommend, particularly for those setting out, that the CCIM designation is a tool that will really help you in your entire career.
Yeah, I got mine too.
Oh, yeah. No, and actually, I think SVN has a very high percentage both of CCIMs and SIORs. Definitely, I think that portion of it is critically important. I am also a counsellor of real estate. They're an incredibly impressive group of people. A lot of the top economists and researchers from around the US are involved in that organisation. And because of a lot of the advisory work that I've done, particularly for a lot of the banks, I was granted membership. And so I'm very, very proud to be invited to be included in their ranks. It's a very grueling interview process. And I think they turn away more than they accept. So very proud to, but yeah, a lot of incredibly intelligent, knowledgeable people. So that's an organization I'm very proud to be involved with. I'm also involved with the British American Chambers of Commerce, or BABC, the British American Business Network, and I've been involved there both on the Transatlantic Board as well as locally in Northern California. So, and obviously, I think there, again, it's all relationship driven. If I hadn't have been involved in that organization, I wouldn't have made the relationships that I did within the banking industry in particular. Which then led to, further success for me and, outreach to be able to refer business to other SVN offices.
Yeah. Sounds like an amazing mix, but at the same time, they kind of all overlap and work well together. Yeah.
And you often talk about your some of the medical conferences you go to. Is it? Well,
yes.
Is it Revista? Is that right?
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a number of excellent conferences that I recommend, and I'd say the creme de la creme. If someone wanted to choose just one conference to go to, the one I would recommend is actually the BOMA conference. So the BOMA Medical Real Estate Conference, and I haven't got it memorized where it is, but that is the biggest of all of the conferences. It's the ICSE, of medical. And so I'd say for anyone who's wondering, which one should I go to? Because there are so many, that is the one I'd recommend putting on the calendar. The second one, Revista is an organization that collects information about medical rents, medical values, and then they repackage it and sell it out. They're a bit like CoStar, but for the medical real estate industry, apart from they're so much better. Absolute pleasure to work with, and they really do go into a lot of detail in terms of scrubbing their information. So there's a lot of really fascinating information that they put out there. In addition to them hosting a conference, And they also have expanded over the last couple of years into into the senior housing side of things as well.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating.
You keep busy.
Yeah.
I do.
You do a lot. It is amazing, Catherine.
Yeah. Now, believe it or not, I do say no to organizations. So,
You have to.
I recently stepped down from the board of the BABC, and so you do actually occasionally have to say no. Something's got to give, particularly with the new goals that I have for 2025 and 2026.
Yeah. So we have 2 questions that we always wrap up with, and I would love to I'm really excited about hearing, with all your experience, I think you have some great answers here. So the first one is, with your experience, what pieces of advice would you give to new agents who are starting their careers in CRE and looking at medical as a direction that they are interested in going in? What would you say are some of the key things they should focus in on, learn, do, get involved with as they're starting their career?
So I've over the years, I have been involved in speaking to a number of people entering the industry or considering entering the industry, and my advice to them is actually pretty consistent. This is a relationship business, and because of that, it takes years and years and years to develop those relationships. Mm-hmm. This is not a get rich quick scheme or career, which unfortunately I think sometimes I've met many young people who seem to somehow think, oh, it's going to be different for me, and they're going to come in and they're going to just earn a fortune, and they're focused on earning the money, and they have a great work ethic. They know that they have to work hard, but they somehow seem to think that a couple of months in, if they work really hard and have no social life, that they're somehow going to be top performing brokers and earning a lot of money. And what I try and encourage them to do is to say, no. If you're not prepared to commit, I would say at least 15 years of your life, then you perhaps might want to think about going into something else, because you really don't start earning really decent money until you've been doing it for a while and you've built those relationships and people are referring you the business. And so I think regardless of what sector you're in, my advice there, I think, would be very similar. Unless you're prepared to commit, I'd say, 15 years, don't do it. And I've met people who said, oh, I just was thinking of doing it for 2 or 3 years before I do X. And I said, no, it's a lot of work. If you know that this is not what you want to do long term, then go and do something else. Go and get a salaried job where you could be paid, 200,000 day one, because I think that's what you're looking for. You're not looking to be paid a pittance as you gradually work your way up the ladder. And then I think connected with that, I'd say from the word go, make sure you've got a decent CRM system, a good database, because you need to be organized. You're going to be going to events. You're going to be meeting people. You need to have an organized system that you're using. And so having one good database, one good CRM system that you use from the beginning, I can't emphasize how important that is. So I think those are the 2 bits of advice that I like to give to. And obviously, if I'm telling somebody do not enter the industry, then I'm not going to be drilling down into the nuances of go and do a CCIM class and go and buy a database out of your own pocket. If I'm telling them no, go away, you shouldn't be in this industry, then I'm obviously not going to be drilling down into those further details.
Sure, of course.
They always say the best CRM to buy is the one you're going to use, but I'm curious which one you use.
Which one do you use, Catherine?
There's so many.
True. I started off using one called ACT with a commercial real estate overlay. I want to say I moved a number of years ago to Apto, and I've been using Apto for many years. I would say every database has elements to it where I'm like, I wish it would do this,
right?
Or I wish it would do this more easily.
Yeah, there's no perfect one.
And so I think, I'm not, I would consider changing databases, and in fact, I think there's even someone within SVN who's trying to design one at the moment.
I'm actually using it.
Yeah, he was on our podcast recently.
Yeah, Augie
Schmidt.
Yeah, so I'd be very curious to learn more. But again, what I don't want to do is jump in, and if the database is going to be discontinued,
it's a big decision.
It doesn't cover all of the points, all of the aspects that I need it to.
We'll talk when I see you.
Absolutely. No, I'd be very curious.
We have lots to catch up on.
So,
yeah. Absolutely. Okay, our closer question, we ask everyone this exact question. If you could go back and start your career over again, but keep all the knowledge and experience that you have gained, which is a lot, right? You have some great insights. What is something that you would do differently?
So if I could go back in my my time machine and pop out and just leave myself a little note from my future self, I think I would have come over to the United States earlier. It would have been, I think, to have come over in my mid-20s rather than my late 20s. I still think it was actually incredibly useful to get the experience I did as an English chartered surveyor, and that focus on valuation, which is very much the bedrock of commercial real estate.
We agree.
So that is an
research.
area where I'm very happy that I'm very happy that I did that. So I would, but no, I think maybe just coming over a few more years earlier. But other than that, I'm actually really happy with the course of my career and where I've ended up. And the story's not yet over. I've got goals I'm looking to achieve for this year, for the year ahead. And, so I think this is a very exciting industry, and it's a industry that I think is constantly evolving. So I almost need my future self to come and give me advice now, particularly as I am evolving into investing in medical real estate myself. What don't I know now that I should? And my plan is to surrounded myself with knowledgeable people so that I can pick their brains. And I'm assuming that is the correct course of action.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah. Wise advice.
Yeah.
Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Deal. It's really great to have you, and we appreciate your time and sharing your insights and your story with us.
No, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
That was Catherine House sharing her insights on medical real estate. For more information on Catherine, SVN Capital West Partners, or to learn more about SVN Lattice, click the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Deal.